and welcome to another episode of Martes con Jose. That's Tuesdays with Jose for my non-Spanish speakers. Today, I'm bringing some friends. Today, I brought Offsides with me, and we're going to talk about how we all met. We all met through SAC, but how we all met, at what point of our SAC life we met, and field some questions from you guys. So originally, SAC was started by Stephen Cadwell, Greg Yates, and myself. And Stephen Cadwell is here with me right now, right, John?
Yes.
There's Stephen Cadwell.
Jose, thank you so much for having me on Martes Cajones. It's good to...
Con Jose. That other, what you said is actually a bad word in Spanish.
Oh, all right. Good.
I see that you brought Greg Yates with you too.
Yes. Oh, wrong side. There he is. I just feel like he's judging us, but that's all right.
Now, do you remember where we met? Like what level of the classes we met at SAC?
Yes, it was level 3. We had Jay Hopkins as our level 3 instructor.
That's right. And then we level 4 with Dave Russell.
Mm-hmm.
And we did not make it into Lab Rats.
Correct.
So then we signed up for level 4 again. You,
Yep.
Greg, and myself, and obviously there was other people in the class. And we graduated, and we still didn't make it into Lab Rats.
Yeah.
So then I think you came up to us, to Greg and myself in class, and you were like, "Hey, there's a fall festival at my church, and I was wondering if you guys want to do a show with me." And that's basically what started Offsides, because that was the first show we ever did together.
Yes, and after that we enjoyed. Well, I think we knew we enjoyed playing with each other already from playing with each other in class.
Correct.
So but we just kind of hit it off even more so there. So we thought we'd try to do more of that if the opportunity arose.
And actually, John actually has a picture of the three of us at our first show at that church. John, that picture with the three of us, there it is. Look at those young little guys.
Yeah.
Well, I love that you have your cell phone on your hip.
That was the way to wear it back in those days. You probably didn't have a cell phone, so you're just jealous that I was.
Probably. I probably had a beeper still. I probably still had a beeper. Yes.
Yeah, that may as well have been a beeper. I love that phones don't have holsters anymore. They should have holsters again.
And none of us are taking the picture seriously. We're all doing something else. That was what I loved about it. Well, enough about us, because there's the rest of the group. So let's bring the rest of Offsides in, and let's talk about how the rest of them came in.
Hey, Richard,
Mike,
Mustache,
and Jamie. What's up, guys?
That's awesome.
By the way, Steven, you're coming to us from Michigan right now, aren't you?
Yes, I am.
That's right. And Mike is in LA?
Los Angeles, correct?
Yes. All right. Mm-hmm. And Richard, Jenny, and Jamie in Orlando?
Claremont.
Still in Orlando.
Los Angeles is a very dirty word in my language.
Oh,
yeah.
Sorry, Richard. My mistake.
So we like LA better.
Los LA.
Nice. So let's talk about, how did Offsides get started? Obviously, we talked about that part. Stephen was the one that planted the seed in Greg and myself. And then sorry, Stephen. And then that started Offsides. But then I believe the next person we invited was Jenny, correct?
Yes, and you and I were chatting the other day, just trying to get everything straight. And you and Greg declined to do another round of level 3 or 4, rather.
4, correct. We were tired of taking level 4s with Dave.
And I took, but that's where I met Jenny. Is I took it again. I must have taken it a third time and met Jenny. I know I met Jenny at SAC in class. So if you guys didn't, then it must have been.
Well, I thought Greg was also. I took level 4 with Greg as well.
Okay, so maybe Jose's the only one that didn't.
That might have been it. I know.
I was in
twice.
I think I was in 8th grade when you guys were in level 4.
Yeah, which is weird because you were 20.
Right.
And then
I remember there's a couple stories about the parking garage at the old SAC, right, on Amelia Street, because that's where you guys asked me right outside that second entrance, the garage entrance, the SAC. That's where you
double yellow doors.
said, would you be interested in joining our group? And then when I joined, my nickname was the girl because I was the only girl in the group at the time.
Yes, right. We were very progressive.
Very progressive.
Well, since you're giving us the nicknames, I was the Tude because Greg thought I had an attitude. And Steven, what was yours?
The Rev.
The Rev.
Yes.
You were getting your Master's of Divinity at the time?
Yes.
Yeah.
And we got that's when we got accepted into Lab Rats. And guess who was coaching Lab Rats then?
Richard
Paul. Well, wrong way.
That way.
Okay. Richard was also my level 1 instructor.
Me too. Richard was my level 1 instructor too. That was, it was. And then,
I think level 2, I had Richard.
No, you had.
I had Richard when Steven bailed on his level 3 class, I think.
Yes, Steven came into our level 3 class one day. And I remember specifically there was a scene you did about Taco Bell. And that's, and I never saw you again until you asked me to be part of the group.
I think
that was your level 3?
Yeah, with David Charles.
Yeah, Mike, I think you were in 9th grade at the time.
Yeah, I was in 9th grade. They just kind of let me move forward.
Yeah, you're good.
There's like a state rule or something at a certain age. You just kind of
you have to.
Mm-hmm.
And then Richard stepped down from Offsides, and John Hunter took over. And Steven, I think
that's from Lab Rats.
You said Offsides.
He's not.
There's something that we never told the rest of you. There was a conversation that we had.
Jose's giving us that blank stare again.
Yeah, it was at Chipotle.
Lab Rats.
We were having this conversation in Chipotle. Yeah, we were in Chipotle when it happened.
And then we asked Richard if he wanted to coach Offsides, and Richard said, "No, I'd rather be in Offsides." And we have
Yeah.
Listen up a little, Jose. There he
is. There he goes, staring at us again.
What's wrong with my video?
Well, and then do you guys remember when you invited Jamie to join? Because I remember because I was taking a little break because I was pregnant or had a baby at home.
Women at the same time.
No, couldn't have that.
Progressive.
Then we needed the girl spot filled in again.
Right.
How does he not move his mouth when he talks?
It's impressive.
It's amazing.
Oh.
So then Jamie joined because I remember you guys giving me a call and they said, "Do you remember Jamie? And we want to invite her to join. And would you be okay with that?" They were really worried that as a woman, I would not want. No, they were just being nice about it. And then I had played with Jamie. She was in Lab Rats at the time because you were a Gen S'er, but you were doing dental school, so you couldn't do Wednesday nights. So you came to play with us Tuesday night, folks.
And it was fun.
Yeah.
And then
did we meet you in Gen S then, Jamie?
I think so. Jose and I had been in classes together. I think like level 1 and 2. And then, yeah.
Well, I think you were in Lab Rats just for that short period of time, right?
Because I'm that good, yes. Mm-hmm. There are too many women in Lab Rats. We need to move you to Gen S, please.
And then when did we convince Mike to join?
I'm pretty sure I think I asked Steven if I could play in the early show. And he was like, "No, but we have this group Offsides. You could do that." I think that's how it went.
I don't remember that, but the no wouldn't have come from me for early show. That was just
no.
weird.
I think I had Greg was my substitute. He was learning to teach my level 1 class. And that's when I met Greg and Steven. And because Steven would just like be there hanging out. and then I had Steven in level 3. And then I think at the end of level 3, I was like, hey, I want to do shows. If I don't get into lab rats, can I do shows still? And he was like, I think you can just maybe come try out our group or something. I don't remember.
Did you have Richard for an instructor anywhere in there?
Richard popped into your class one week, I believe, that you weren't there. And he didn't really teach the class, I remember. He sort of just did improv with us for 3 hours. He was like, all right, we're going to do a montage. And everyone was like, what? Okay. And then everyone was just like trying to do scenes with Richard. Go ahead.
Oh, was that a class? Was that a class? I'm sorry. I thought it was just a group of people that were
No, it was a class. We were like learning, paying money, you know.
Well, I thought you got paid for jamming with people. That's what I just thought.
Yeah, no. I remember we did a scene and Richard told me there was I can't remember the flower, but a very specific type of flower that I had never heard of on my lapel in the scene. And I felt very stupid because I didn't know what either of those things were. I was like, what's a lapel again? And a flower? And I just panicked.
Richard, you went through a phase where, and maybe you're still in this phase, where you're very like, you taught lab rats for a while, and you'd be like, everyone, split up in the theater. Now, I want you to pretend like you have an apple in your hand.
Oh.
And of course, I'm like, what is happening?
Yeah. That's
like, okay.
Yeah. That's fall, Richard. That's fall. Fall, Richard.
That's when apples are in season.
Right?
Well, do you remember when we went, where were we, in Miami? Where did we take the Rosowski workshop? Or was that up in Georgia?
Atlanta.
The first one that I think it was just Jose, Greg, and I but maybe Steve Sherrill was there.
Steve Sherrill.
Yeah. Crazy Face was in Miami. That was our first encounter with Rosowski. I don't know if you were there or not, Jenny. Were you there for that one? And then he did a workshop in Atlanta, I think, as well. So when we were at the Black Box Improv Festival, which no longer exists, it's been subsumed by the whatever comedy festival now they have up there instead. But he was up there for that, or maybe it was Gainesville. Is that what you said, Gainesville? Maybe it was Gainesville.
I wasn't sure if it was Miami, but I think that's where we took the Armando class with Armando.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, it's one of those things that it's so funny as I teach level 1 and people are always asking about performing. And to Mike's point, one of the things that I tell them, they want to get on stage, and I'm like, find people that you gel with, find people you like to play with, and form a group. I'm like, that's what we did. And we went to festivals and we did shows and we workshopped every Monday night. Pretty much, unless there was some crazy thing going on, we were together in some iteration of us every Monday night workshopping.
Yeah. Yep.
Hey, I know we were missing Jose. Has anyone taken a look at any of the anything on the feed?
Yes, they're having some good combos between themselves.
Yeah.
How do you do that?
Yeah, we can take questions.
Oh, there we go.
This is riveting.
John?
I don't know anything or really anything how to do this. I
see one from Robin. Yeah, there it is. Fun fact, Jenny teaches level 1, Brett does not. That's the running joke. Brett on Wednesday nights is talking about, I love level 1. Like, level 1 is my sweet spot. People come in, they're so excited to play. And I have taught the other levels. Like, Steven would bring me in to sub one of his classes. And I taught level 2 and I made somebody cry. She just had tears. And so I'm like, you know what? Maybe level 2 is not my jam. I like people to be happy. So I love level 1. I've been teaching level 1 for probably 5 or 6 years now. And I always talk about finding people that you love to play with and play with those people. Get better with those people. Do you guys remember this, Steven, in your old apartment? When sometimes when we would workshop, if you were late or whatever, you would walk in and you didn't know if you were walking into a scene, like a scene already happening. So you just kind of had to be prepared to walk into just a scene happening at any moment. I remember several times.
Yes, we used to do as well. If you guys remember, this was probably later. Well, I guess we're getting a little ahead of ourselves. So, what I was going to say earlier is that what I remember about Mike's integration into the troupe was that Richard talked to me and said, "Hey, there's a guy in your class that you should pay a little more attention to, or whatever." Like he stood out. Mike, you stood out to Richard a little bit, and Greg had already said something. He said first of all, he's really ignorant.
He doesn't know what flowers are.
Right.
Or lapel.
Yeah. Chrysanthemum, lapel, blew his mind.
Chrysanthemum. That was it.
What's it?
I don't know. Maybe. Sorry, keep going.
And then Greg had said something as well about you going up and say, "Hey, when he gets to your class, take a look at him or pay attention or whatever." So we'd had little conversations here and there. I don't know. Did we bring you ladies in on that at all before we talked about?
No, just the men.
I might have been having another baby at the time. Who knows? I took time off for each baby. Wait, before we go past this, oh, sorry, Jamie. Did you see the John is asking what was the most uncomfortable event you all did as Offsides? That's got to be one of the banquet halls, right?
The banquet
hall.
Well, Mike, what about? Were you at a banquet hall, Mike?
I'm back.
Yay, Jose.
Yes.
There were two that stand out to me. One was in Tampa, and another was, I forget where it was, but they were both banquet halls. The first one, I don't think we had any microphones at all.
No.
And like halfway into the first game, everyone just started having conversations at their table and continuing to eat and ignoring us, and it was glorious.
And I remember we only had 2 microphones, and we had to pass them back and forth.
That was the other one.
So if somebody walked into a scene, it was like, "No, don't walk in. We don't have enough mics."
Steven, do you miss Zach? And are you still improvising? Robin wants to know.
Yes, I do, and I'm not currently. Kayla and I just bought a house in Niles, and there's not much of a scene. Niles is just north of South Bend, Indiana. There's not much of a scene yet, so we're hoping to try to maybe get something started.
Jay Hopkins, I see him saying, "What structures did you create as a group that you particularly like?" You knew it was happening. Come on now.
Well, wait. Let's talk about the structure that was created that never developed.
Yeah.
Taxi.
Transit.
Transit.
Well,
let's explain what transit was. It was a good idea.
That's how you want to start it.
Yeah.
Before we even get going, it was great.
We started off, I remember the ones that we did, and Steven, this was a different house of Steven. Steven moved a lot. And we were in a subway car, and various people would get on the subway, and they would do little vignettes on the subway, and then later we would break out into scenes and see those characters again. We would see them again. It was a great idea. I don't know why it didn't work.
Well, I have some theories, but I want to say the genesis of that was after Richard was in the group, we all started talking about wanting to do long form, and there wasn't really anything for that in Orlando. Because SAC at the time, there was no long form, and there were no other real venues. The other groups that existed, there were a couple, but they were doing short form as well, like at Austin's Coffee Shop and some other places. Jose?
And Michael was still in 7th grade.
Yes.
Yeah. They held me back for a while.
You had to repeat. And so anyway, we were really just on our own. So we talked about a lot of the stuff coming out of Chicago and those forms and what the Herald and all that jazz. And we, in our naivete, thought, hey, let's just create our own thing and take it to Gainesville Improv Festival. Now we took Transit and we played it at the Gainesville Improv Festival, our first time at the festival. And somehow we managed to go back the next year. I'm not saying the show was bad, but it ended with something about a house being built on an Indian burial ground.
Yes, and I will say that was one of the people ask if you ever remember like something that you regret in improv, and I still remember the first line of that. Steven, it was the biggest block that I'd ever done in my entire life. I think I was just nervous. I was reading a book, or what I thought was a book. Again, I didn't say level 1 students. I didn't say it was a book. And you came in and said it was a like a place or some sort of handheld game device. And I immediately said, I'm reading a book. Like watching it. I still remember that block, people. It haunts me.
I don't remember that at all. What I do remember is all of us in a circle out back behind Jose.
Yes, that first one. John, can you put up the second picture? Because that first show, we obviously wore these shirts. What did we think we were, a band?
Yeah, we were.
But this was cool.
You guys were.
It was
You guys
cool.
were a cover band of Jars of Clay, I think.
We were.
Yeah, we like it.
Well, you know, one of the names we thought we were going to be was Jars of Play, but you know,
I still have my shirt, people.
Oh,
Now I remember actually how I was asked officially to join the group.
We gave you a T-shirt?
We kidnapped you.
Steven and Greg took me to Chipotle.
No, we kidnapped
Or was it you? Yeah, Jose, you were there.
It was Steven, Greg, and I, and we kidnapped you.
You kidnapped me. That's right. And you took me to a Chipotle.
Yep.
And you bought my burrito, and then put an Offsides T-shirt on the table next to my burrito. I was in.
So people should know though that Chipotle is where you either were invited to join Offsides or asked to leave. So that's Chipotle.
There's a lot of evacuation that happens at Chipotle, or because of Chipotle. So
yeah. So we've got transit.
Yeah.
Yes.
And we also have fast fact.
Fast fact.
All of us. So those are our 3 that we feel like we have. So we got transit that we kind of talked about. We've got fast fact, which was created by Greg. And we would ask for a fact from the audience, and that would start it. And somebody would say fast fact, and then they would give that fact. And then other people would come in with other random facts, and we would do scenes based on those.
Richard, do you remember the first suggestion? I don't know if it was the first one, but I know it was a Gainesville Improv Festival suggestion.
Oh, Jamie remembers.
Jamie remembers.
It was something about pig orgasms.
Yeah,
yes.
Pig orgasms.
Yeah.
Yeah, they last for 30 minutes.
Yep. That was our first get for that in a show.
By the way, Offsides, I sent John the link, but all of our Gainesville shows, I think except one, are on Vimeo. And John, if you happen to, that's it. You can see them at that link if you want to go check them out and relive some of our bad sets and some of our great sets.
Well, and they don't have the duet. I think Richard and I did one year.
No.
I wish we had that, Richard. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it was so good. That was the year that Steven and Greg moved up to Chicago.
Yeah.
And Mike had already left.
Right. And then Jose, you had surgery.
Yeah, you had
Correct.
something.
I was pregnant.
You were pregnant. Yeah. So it was
And
just me.
And it was funny. They were expecting the whole group to show up.
Because we had done all of us the year before.
Yeah.
Everybody. So all of us, the conceit for that was all of us were in every scene. Every single scene, all of us. And we had to learn how to, focus on different people at different times. But that was the conceit, that all of us. But at the time, it was impressive because we were all there. Yeah.
To mine and Stephen Greg's credit, we definitely in Chicago had conversations about that it would be fun if we went, and we should think about going. So, just so we're clear,
they had conversations about it.
Multiple in person.
Somebody was asking in the comments, I think it was Katie or Tease, about where we workshopped. And we rotated to people's houses. So like I said, Stephen had many houses. Yeah. We went to Richard's. We went to Jamie's.
We went to the YMCA.
Oh yeah,
that was
where,
our first. The Y was the first.
yeah, where Jose was working at the time. We came to my house, my front room. We first moved into this house. We were moving from a smaller house to a bigger house, so we had no furniture up there. So it was great. We had all the space we needed. Jose. Yeah.
But while I was gone, did you guys talk about that we workshopped every Monday, that we met every Monday?
Yes,
You guys talk about
every
that?
Monday.
Gotcha. I wasn't here. so I
Whoever
don't
was available every
And,
Monday.
and did you guys talk about that we stipulated 3 rules that you didn't have to be there if you had work issue, family issue, or health issue?
You know, that's something I was thinking about today. I wanted to bring up that Stephen, very early on when we started this, really wanted to get people's families involved. And
Yep.
I mean, at the time, I know I was married, but he said, if we're gonna do this, and this is gonna take a lot of our time, we want everybody's families to be invested in it. And so we did things, we workshopped, but we also did things together to hang out, and Ryan was included. I mean, I have pictures of Greg and Stephen holding Landon as a baby. Like, you guys came over and you threw me a baby shower. I mean, do you remember that? So like we became a family.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
True.
Yeah, to me, I actually tell people about that all the time, whether they asked about it or not. I do. I do tell people about it because that right there is a demonstration of like where people are important. People come, the other person comes first, and trust that we'll all get better at this improv thing. We'll get better at it, but you know, when we make it so much about a commodity or getting something out of it, we then start to devalue everyone because it's all about you. And not to say everyone wants to be better at. Everyone except for Mike Aviles wants to be better at
Accurate, so accurate.
better at improv. But at the end of the day, it's like when you're better with the people you're with, everything gets better. That's what I loved about it. Really did.
I think my first 3 rehearsals, I'm pretty sure it was just kind of watching Greg try to do like full on front flips and handstands, like walk the whole living room. So,
or his trust fall, where he would just yell trust fall and start falling.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
We'd also be moving bodies with no one moving you.
Very
I
fun.
love that. I love that game.
Also, I'd say also that one of the key things that for me worked a lot with Offsides was we trusted each other even when we gave notes. We would tell each other notes and we never challenged each other's notes. We would just accept them. And I think that's also a problem that people fall into, is that sometimes they don't accept them, so then they lose the trust in the group.
There was a road trip to Atlanta that I thought that I might kill Richard, but we made up. And
We did.
I remember that, and what I remember about that was on the way home, right?
Yeah.
Or was it, I don't know.
Yeah, it was on the way home.
Richard, Kayla and I still do this occasionally, but Richard was in the passenger seat. I was driving, and it was real late. I think everyone else was asleep. Jamie happened to be in the middle seat right up front between Richard and I, but in the next row back. And Richard, to both entertain us and keep us awake, at one point, I don't know if this was at night, but was reading license plates, trying to read the license plate as if the letter or the numbers were also letters, just to try to form a word or several words. If it makes no sense to you, that's exactly what it was like in the car. But we were doing it loudly and laughing loudly, and Jamie was trying to sleep because she had, family and other obligations. Once
to work, it was like we were gonna get home to Greg's house at like 6, and I had to be at work at 7:30. So I was like,
that's when we were in Atlanta with the gas shortage. There was no gas to be had.
Yeah.
We were driving around late at
That's
night
right.
trying to find gas because we were gonna be stuck there. And I think I was pregnant with Audrey and had morning sickness. Oh my gosh.
When Was that when we did the Black Box Improv Festival, or was that another?
Yes, that was one of the Black Box Improv festivals.
Oh boy!
Now that I have this context, I don't think I would have done all of that.
Nah, I don't know about that.
I think you would.
That's debatable.
I'm sorry, Davey. I'm sorry.
That's all right.
I won't, like I usually do in every scene, I would slap somebody.
I want to say hi to my friend Sarah. She was saying hi. Hi, Sarah.
Hi, Sarah.
Hi, Sarah.
Hi, Sarah.
If we say hi to one person, we're going to have to say hi to everybody.
Okay, hi,
Let's get
Sarah.
her in
I
here.
only
Let's
have a
get
few
her in.
friends. I have a few.
I used to slap everybody in scenes. And I
Hi,
got
Jose.
talked to.
Hi. I'm alone. Hey, one other thing I wanted to point out is when we invited Richard was actually an ensemble member. He had been an ensemble member for a while. But he didn't make it seem like we were beneath him when we workshopped with him. On the contrary, it was like he brought us up. Like he would help us bring our talents up even more. So thank you, Richard, for that.
Yeah.
I thought everyone in the group was innately more talented than myself. No, really. One of the things I found early working with Offsides was I was coming from a different comic or comedic orientation. I was coming from the theater sports world, short formy, and was then introduced to long form for a while, but really that was really my base. And I started seeing from you all that there are other types of scenes or stories that we could tell that are closer to the experiences that people feel, more of the everyday absurd rather than over the top absurd. And so for me, it was like, this is a chance for me to get acquainted with something, a type of comedic approach that now later would give birth to The Office and give birth to, Modern Family and many other different comedies where it's more about the everyday absurd versus some situational, crazy, wacky sitcom thing. So you all helped me reframe the way I approached work.
Well, that's what I loved about our scenes is we could just sit in those scenes for a long time and discover things. And I still think of the stuff, Stephen, that you put up on YouTube with Greg and I, Wisdom at the Curb.
Oh.
That was all improvised. Stephen had gone somewhere and just left the camera rolling on Greg and I. And we just had this long scene that then he broke up into snippets, but we could just explore what happened next and then what happens and then what happens. And then it was so amazing to me when you cut them up and had these great little nuggets. And I'm like, but that was all from one long scene.
Yeah.
We love you too, Mike.
Hey, my car.
My mustache loves you too.
So does mine.
Hey, one of the things that early on that Stephen did I thought was really neat was that Stephen would pour through improv books like Improv for Improvisers and other books and kind of do an analysis, a breakdown, and then built a repository, which we called the Offsides Vault. And I still have that on my Gmail.
Yep.
All of the tools that you all came up with, including, I still think of it, the J-Lo scene.
The J-Lo scene. Oh, Stephen, explain the J-Lo scene.
I remember the name, but I don't remember. You'll have to explain it because I don't think I can.
I was hoping you would remember. Richard, do you remember what the J-Lo scene is?
Well, I remember the concept of it, which is there's something going on, but the characters never bring themselves to acknowledge right away what's there. Like you were on a raft and it was sinking, and there's an alligator, but you kept talking about J-Lo, but you can tell you all were very worried about the alligator, but you never said it. right?
You never let go of
You
Jake.
never, right, and that like that's how like sophisticated you all were about how in terms of making it an art. That's what I thought. It was like, wow, they're like trying to do some advanced scene stuff here, approaches to scenes as opposed to, hey, let's just get better at should have said, and which is typically where you would be 2 or 3 years into improv. You all were talking about, but what really makes a scene a scene? You
And
know?
J-Lo.
Always makes it a scene.
We should probably go to the audience, I would assume, because they're just basically watching us talk to each other like we're in the living room.
Isn't that what we do, though? Kind of.
Yeah.
But just in case they have some more questions or comments or
Yeah.
That's what our workshops
always
consisted of.
comments. I love Emily's Adam. I don't love him.
Our workshops consisted of us talking for the first 2 hours and then
That's-
workshopping about 45 minutes at the end,
That's
Yeah.
very true.
if that.
I do want
Yep.
to say in terms of the toolbox and the J-Lo scene in particular, that the reason it's called that is because that happened in a scene. Like Jenny did that in a scene. And what we'd like to do is we would try to have a post-mortem of the scenes and talk about what worked, and then distill that into something that we could use again that could be applied to any scene and not just that particular scene. So that's how that became known as the J-Lo thing, was because that happened in a scene, and we wanted a way to remind ourselves of that to use it again in future scenes. So
What's your favorite Greg story? Anybody?
Oh my goodness, we only have an hour for this show.
Yeah, for real.
This could go on forever.
No.
In a scene, hanging out. I mean,
I'll tell you. Okay, so Greg and I, we were doing a scene and we were in McDonald's, and I'll always remember this. I think I've told this many times, but we were in a scene at McDonald's and we were making fries, and he endowed me as Cheryl. But the way he said it was so funny. He was like, "Hey, Cheryl," and so from that moment on, years and years and years, we'd be like, "Hey, Cheryl," and anytime we were in scenes together, he would endow me as Cheryl. I don't know why. It was just funny to me. The end.
I have one
Okay, that
off
one.
stage. I have one off stage that I've told before. Greg and I had gone to Chick-fil-A as we frequented before a workshop. This was actually a workshop we took with David Charles. And when we got to Rollins, we both had to go number 2. So we like hurried up to the bathroom. And when we got there, the stalls were like right next to each other, and it was very quiet. And we were trying to be very quiet, but all of a sudden I let out a little squeak of a toot, and Greg said, "Oh, is that how it's going to be?" And he just let out this really big one, and it was like the most supportive thing to me. It was like, all right, okay.
You guys remember when we started doing, when Stephen and Greg and Mike moved away, we started doing Marco Polos. And I know Mike's not great at keeping up with them, but my favorite is that, yeah, I love the shot. But my favorite is Greg would always do them, and I think I still have them in my app somewhere.
Yes.
He would always do them from the bathroom, like he
From
would
the toilet.
do a polo, and then at the end he would reach back and flush. That's how he ended his Marco Polos.
Yep. That was the end. That was the end of his Marco.
I remember he was on a kick there for a minute because I wasn't doing them. So then he would do one and then just slap me in it is how he would end it.
Hey, Mike, you spent a great deal of time with Greg, and then you and Greg were writing partners, and you actually developed work, including some work that you're taking around at different festivals at the moment, you boys, and probably some other projects. I have a question for you, and that is like, what was your process in you guys writing together? What was that like?
Yeah.
In your Chicago days?
Well, yeah. I mean, when we first moved to Chicago, it was sort of similar experience when we were at SAC. We just wanted to start doing shows as quickly as possible. And I think there was a good stint there where it was just kind of me and him. And then Steven, I think you moved up maybe, I don't know how many months later, but me and him just sort of started doing some sketch shows at like random, Chicago had a lot of these like like test sketch shows. You know, you come in and just like do 10 minutes and you could just test material. So we just started going to a lot of those, and we quickly found out that we were basically improvising sketches. It was like we would go in and be like, all right, here's a sketch about 2 like fighter pilots and they crash behind enemy lines. Like that was all it was. And then we would just go in and like do the sketch. But that made us realize that we're like, well, if we want to do anything with sketch or writing, we are going to need to actually write some stuff. And so that led us to, we basically would go out and do an improv show. And the funniest scene from that show was like, all right, let's write this next week or tomorrow, like as soon as possible. So we would just go to Starbucks, and literally it'd be just me on my computer and Greg over my shoulder trying to remember, like we'd improvise the scene, and I would just type as much as I could. And that was sort of how we started writing our sketch shows. So we were writing sketch shows and doing, I'm going to make this long story short, or because it was like 6 years, I think. So we started doing sketch shows. We started doing, all the any sketch show in Chicago we would jump on. So Chicago Sketch Festival. Our sketch group was called Mommy, because we asked our moms what a good idea for a name was. They didn't really have any good ideas, so we called it Mommy. But yeah, so the way we wrote, fast forward to the pilot, was we were basically doing all these sketch shows, and we were terrible about remembering to film them so we could get into other festivals. We never had material because we were lazy. And so we decided, like, let's actually buckle down and like write this stuff. Like, so we just started writing our sketches like in scripts. And then that led to like, well, what are we going to use these for? Let's start filming them. We filmed a short film of a sketch called Antidote, which it's online. I've never really shared it too much. I should share it. But that was our first film we made, and we had so much fun doing it that we were like, let's keep going. Like, let's try to write like a pilot, And so we started writing the You Boys pilot probably, I'm going to guess 4 years before we actually even filmed it, maybe 5 years ago. And we wrote like 4 different versions of it. And it was always centered around, we are grown men who live with our mom. That was always the plot. And that changed in multiple different ways. But yeah, so when we finally, the last year of Greg's life was like a very, like probably one of the most fun times of my life, because I was full-time acting. So I basically didn't have a job. And Greg would be done working around noon every day. And I don't know what it was. I think it was right after he auditioned for SNL, had a great audition. I think some fire kicked into him, and he was just like ready to go. Like he was so motivated, and we would meet up every day and write for like 3, 4, 5 hours at a coffee shop, either at his place, my place. And we wrote that pilot that we shot in 6 months, maybe. I mean, we had it done basically in like 2 or 3 months. And then we rewrote it. And yeah, and the last time we hung out was we did a final read through with our director, and we were like, cool, high fives, let's go film this thing. So yeah, all that happened, and we lost Greg, and it felt like it just was something I had to finish. And a year later, through friends, a good mutual friend of ours, Emily, just made sense for them to play the part. And it was sort of Emily is genderless, she's sort of non-binary.
She looked a lot like Greg, and
she kind of kind of look like Greg, and I thought it was the best way to sort of portray his voice without trying to re-emulate it, if that makes sense, without trying to have someone take that part that was so original to him. And so it made it was still the thing, but it was different, which was awesome. And it's actually going to come out here next week, finally. So it's been like,
where?
So we've done a bunch of festivals, and we've won Best TV Episode at a few festivals.
Yeah.
And so we are going to be launching it on, it's called Just for Shorts, Hollywood Just for Shorts. They have an online festival, and they're going to be releasing it this week. Wow. So as soon as it's out, we'll blast it everywhere.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Sorry for the long story.
No, that was great. That was awesome. Elizabeth
go ahead.
wants to know what our favorite slice of life skit was.
I have a favorite, but I wasn't even present for it. But this is a story. This is a story that Greg told. Some of you guys may have been there. I believe it was a slice of life, and it was it was an On the Right Track, and the person in it wanted to propose at the end of it.
Yes, I was there.
All right, well then you need to finish telling the story because I'm going to get it wrong.
Well, there was two. One was at the old Sac on Amelia, old for me. That was the one I started in, and then one at the new venue in Orange Avenue. But the Amelia one, when the guy went down to a knee and asked her, "Will you marry me?" The girl paused and said, "We'll have to talk about this later." And that was the end of the show. Like, that was it. Like, no, it's like, all right, everybody, thanks for coming out. Because we did it at the end of the show. That's when they wanted the proposal to happen. And the other one happened on Orange Avenue. And when he got on the knee and proposed, the girl said, "No," real low. No. And that was the end of the show also.
Okay, so I have one. I think Jay Hopkins and I were on stage playing the couple, and it was a man and woman that had known each other in high school, but then they had both married other people, and then I think she had gotten divorced, and his wife had like passed away or something. So when it was his turn to come up to actually ask her on stage, they're both standing up on stage. Jay and I are kind of behind them, like. And I think that he rambled. Poor guy. He was like, "I've known you forever, and I've loved you forever, and I know that you didn't really like me in high school, but I still kept up with you, and I've just been following you, and I know that I've had a lot of girlfriends and wives since then, and da 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 da." And it just kept going, and we were just standing there, and we just stood there, and then it got done, and he said, "So, will you marry me?" And I can't remember if she said yes or if she said, "We'll talk about it." But we couldn't go anywhere. We were standing right behind them. We were just like, "What's happening?" So hopefully
Jay Hopkins, speaking of Jay, is asking if we ever plan on going to any other festivals anymore.
You go to the bathroom. Emily told me to.
Yeah, I mean, I don't see why not. It's just now we don't get to workshop all together, but I don't see why we wouldn't do another festival at some point.
Yeah, the last one we did was everyone except Mike and Greg, right? And we did the last Gainesville Improv Festival that happened. They haven't had one since. We wrecked it.
Yeah.
We broke it.
That's true. I forgot about that.
I wasn't at that one either. I was in surgery again.
Oh, right.
That's right. It was the four of us. Yeah.
Me, Jose, and Greg had a phone call talking about how we want to go.
Yeah.
Think about going. Yeah.
I thought about that, stitches and all. I was like, I should go, but
got to make this work.
We were in the same. We felt the same way. We thought Jose's that's a terrible excuse. Forget the whole thing about family and health. He should be here.
Right.
So
who needs two kidneys anyway? Right.
Me, Steven, and Greg did a couple festivals there.
Oh yeah.
And did we ever do it as Offsides, or I think we called it something else, but it was we did basically what Offsides would do.
Yeah.
What did we call it? I can't remember what we called it.
We did one awful show in New York and one really fabulous show in Chicago.
Those two shows. One of the worst, maybe the worst show I've ever done, and then the best show I've ever done with you guys. It was like so funny.
That's awesome.
New York was like, I remember that. I'll never forget how that show started. Greg just started rolling up a body in like a carpet. He was like, "You guys, help me, whatever." And me and Steven just stared at each other like, "Do you want to do it? I don't want to do it. I don't know." And that just set the tone for the rest of the show. We just kept standing around going like, "I don't know. Do you want to do this scene? I don't really want to do this scene."
In case anyone
we did.
This is a brush that I dyed my roots with today, so I can see on camera.
I thought it was an eyebrow brush. My bathroom is too far away, Emily, for me to run to, but I grabbed this from next to me.
Hey guys, real quick, because I mean, we don't really have to stick to the 1 hour, but we should because we have John Valina's teching for us. Yes,
thank you, John.
Thank you, John.
I did bring one more thing with us because one of the things we used to do a lot was warm up before every show, before every workshop. And one of my favorite warm-ups was actually a Greg warm-up, which was "You Can Do It." And in honor of Greg, I found the video, thank you to Jamie, and we're going to play it for everybody so everybody can learn how to play "You Can Do It" right now.
Is this at the
You can do it. And you can do this at home or at the office. And it'll just brighten up your day. And it starts off with a simple beat, and it goes... There it is. You found it. You found the beat. Aren't you feeling better already? And the chorus goes like this. You can do it. You can do it. You can do anything. And then you vamp. And you just step in the middle of the circle and tell an inspiring story. Kind of like this. And you keep the beat going. We'll hit it one last chorus. You can do it. You can do it. You can do anything. Today, I was driving in my car, and I was just in my car driving, and I saw these ducks coming, and they were going across the road, and there were people coming behind me, so I slowed down. I was like, "Hurry up, ducks! You can do it! You can do it! You can do anything!" Today, while driving here, I had to get off the expressway to get gas. I got off the expressway, drove all the way to Orange Avenue, got gas, and then drove all the way up Orange Avenue and hit I-4, and it made me late, but I made it. You can do it! You can do it! You can do anything!
So today I was in my car because gas had run out. So I thought to myself, well, there's a gas station right up the street. And if I can push it all the way to the gas station, I can get more gas.
You can do it! You can do it! You can do anything!
So I spent 2 hours that I should have been getting ready to come here watching a Lifetime movie. And come to find out after 2 hours, it actually cut it off. We are. But I looked it up and I'm pretty sure I can catch the last 15 minutes on YouTube.
You can do it! You can do it! You can do anything!
Yesterday at work and today at work, I've been teaching everybody at work how to do You Can Do It. Everyone thinks I'm on crack, but it gives them a smile.
You can do it! You can do it!
All right, change these up here.
You can do anything! Accomplishment roll call.
And then say an accomplishment.
Today, I threw out my gas receipt.
Yay!
I got up early to go visit an agent who never showed up.
Yay!
I took 2 poops.
Yay!
I cleaned out my refrigerator.
Yay! I took a nap. Yay!
We can do it.
We can do it. We can do anything.
Yay!
Yay!
Wow.
I thought we would share Greg with everybody since we got a lot of Greg in our life with us a lot of times. So we should share a little bit of Greg.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Any other questions? I saw some people saying for us not to leave, but I mean, I'll leave it up to you guys and John Valina's how long this can go. They want to hear more offside stories.
Yeah, more offside stories or more questions. I know that, or I think Jay was asking how many festival shows we've done. I
was actually counting that the other day. Yeah, but we also got to count like the ones we did separate because like Mike was talking about that him, Steven, and Greg did too. I know Mike, Greg, and I did one down in Cocoa Beach one time, which we got there right at showtime. We did Gainesville Improv Festival 4 times. We did Black Box Festival twice. We did Atlanta Improv Festival twice. We did Sarasota Improv Festival. We did the Tampa Improv Festival.
Did you say Miami?
Miami and Orlando Improv Festival also. And then you two did a Gainesville another time, so that would have been 5 then. And I don't know any other set. So I'd say a lot, close to 20.
I took pictures at most of them, which to Stephen's dismay. I always took pictures, and Stephen was like, "Are you taking pictures again?" But I made a book.
Now we cherish those pictures.
When Stephen and Greg moved away, I made a book for them.
Yes, I have mine.
Jose, he's like, "I didn't get one." I'm like, "Well, you didn't move away."
I lost a kidney. I could have had one for losing a kidney.
Fine, I will make you one. It's on Shutterfly. But I wanted to share a quote I put at the end of the book.
Yes.
Okay.
We didn't realize we were making memories. We just knew we were having fun.
Oh,
nice.
That is true.
Yay!
Yay!
Mine says, "Steven, stuff it."
Oh, you guys, we got cut off telling what we were doing before we went into that festival. Was it the Black Box Improv Festival?
That was the first Gainesville, our very first festival that we ever did.
Festival. We were standing around outside in a circle, and we were trying to see if we could get the other person to laugh by looking in their eyes and saying, "Panties."
Yes.
And we almost missed our call. They had to come out and get us, and we were saying panties to each other.
Yeah, we were just standing in a circle saying panties. You can, I don't know if anyone could guess who came up with that warm up, but
hey, something that I want to bring up. So the people I work with at Advent Health, they're big fans of SAC, big fans. But one of the reasons why they're big fans of those of us at SAC, and I'm sure if they had gotten to see us, they would be big fans of Offsides, was not wanting to. We had a big, I don't know, just philosophically, we didn't feel like we had to go blue. So I wanted to maybe just kind of ask if you all would talk about that for a little bit of like what, not that we were prudish or anything, but there was a philosophical reason why we didn't want to go to the cheapest joke, or we didn't want to just gratuitously curse. Could you all kind of talk about why we went to that kind of philosophy of abstaining from that and focusing on relationship-based scenes?
Jose.
For me, it was. I believe it makes you a smarter and a better player not to play blue right away. You can always do that if that's what you choose to do. But as a group, I think we just felt the same, that we didn't need to go there and play at the top of your head, not the bottom, like sometimes we say. And also, I had a lot of nieces and nephews and little cousins, and I wanted them to be able to come to the shows. And we were doing shows at churches. So it was like, why don't we make sure that our shows are clean? And if something slips out later on when we're doing other shows, then, it was an accident, but it wasn't like that's our crutch. That's what we go to all the time. I still remember the first time I heard Steven cuss in a scene, and I freaked out. I didn't know what to do.
I think I agree with that. I think we kind of went in it. Many of us are believers, and like I want to stay true to what I believe. And also the other thing is that there's not a lot of what I say quality comedy out there for families, just like Jose was saying. I mean, I look for it for my kids. I mean, they're at an age where I want them to know comedy. All right. I want them to know what's really funny. And it's hard to find it out there. And I think I'm not somebody who uses swear words in my normal life. And so it felt really comfortable to be with people that I didn't have to worry about things going in a weird way or something I wasn't comfortable with. So I think all of those things, making it family friendly, staying true to who we are as people. Like I said, I don't use that language. And so it was really nice to be in a place where I wasn't expected to or looked at weird if I wasn't. So
Yeah. No,
Yeah,
I was just saying, just who I work with, they look for that. They stay away from the Fringe Festival, for instance, because they're like, I'm really looking for something that is smart, that's smart and funny here, and smart and funny here, and something that we could all connect to and relate to.
They could probably find that at the Fringe Festival still too.
Yeah, not all shows at the Fringe Festival are blue.
yeah.
This brought to you by the Fringe Festival.
I think it stems from that first show we did at the Harvest Festival, which was a Harvest Festival because they didn't want to use Halloween in the description of the event, and Greg insisted we play this game called F-Bomb, and I was kicked out of the church, and so after that we decided that maybe we should stick with. We felt. I think we had conversations at some point, I'm sure, and I think we were all of the same mind that laughs you get from dropping a curse word or going blue, more often than not all the time, but more often than not, or a large percentage of the time, are shock laughs. They're not funny laughs. You shock the audience, and that seemed easy, and we didn't want to do the easy thing. We wanted to, and we also wanted to perform for families and be family friendly. So.
Well, I think also because we came from SAC and we've been trained there, and SAC does such a great job of, all sorts of people are doing improv at SAC, but it's a place that you can say, come to the 7:30 show and bring your kids. And I think being trained at a facility that offers shows like that also, proved to us, getting to know people that were of the like mind and did smart improv instead of having to bleep it out.
Mm-hmm.
The end.
Just for the record, I was never doing smart improv. Just want to be clear.
You were playing by the seat of your lapels.
Yes.
Al wants to know,
is...
have you ever thrown the pink shoe or felt you needed to? Definitely felt you needed to a bunch of times. but we didn't have a pink shoe.
I think we had like a unwritten pink shoe. It was always like, because it was more fun to teeter that line. I feel like we were always playing up to that line, and that was where we played. It was like, I remember one of the first scenes I did in a show with the group was, it was Greg was churning, or maybe Steven or Jose, I can't remember. Somebody was churning butter.
Yeah.
And the whole scene was about their approach to churning butter. And that's what they were doing. They were churning butter. That's all that was discussed.
You remember when we used to work on our edits, because we would do long form, and so there were some where somebody would just step forward and start a new scene, and then there was the run across. I was famous for running across. Like, I was like, nope, this needs to be done.
Yeah.
I always ran across because I was just like, I felt like we needed to go someplace else. Not everybody agreed with me, but I could run across the stage when I wanted.
No, I actually thought that you were so good at it that the rest of us didn't need to. Really, honestly, Jenny, I thought that was a superpower of yours to edit a scene when it needed to be edited.
Jay has a question for us. Did you ever intentionally go away past the end of your scene?
Like now?
I guess. He's asking.
No, go way past the end of your scene. It's just an autocorrect. I don't remember any specific thing. The one thing I do remember, and I think this might be in the same vein, but not exactly the same thing. There was an early show where everyone on stage managed to get Greg very angry personally, because it was Richard was there, I was in it, Dinger was in it. Mike, were you there for that?
I don't know. I don't remember.
It was he was like a country boy, and he just wanted to get out of the country.
Oh,
and
yes.
The rest of us just made it absolutely impossible for him to leave. Even when he tried to do like a flash forward or something, we just we
followed him there.
We either
made an edit.
and brought him back. And at the end of it, like none of us realized in the moment, or at least I didn't, that he was literally angry, like actually angry, because his character just could not leave. And the rest of us, we just thought it was a game we were playing. And
they still talk about that. Dinger still talks about that.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Dinger folded himself up into the glove compartment of the pretend car, but he was like stuck in the car. Like that was one of the reasons Greg couldn't leave, is because Dinger couldn't. It was Dinger, right? Couldn't get out of the car, and we had to like butter him up and pry him out. It was great.
The theme of butter.
Yeah.
Yes.
There it is.
Yes.
Oh,
I think a lot of our Monday night rehearsals were doing that. We would just do scenes that were like 45 minutes long.
Or just one scene.
One scene. Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And I remember liking it because I wanted to do long form. That was my whole thing. And I was like, this is long form.
This is it.
I'm into it.
Yeah, I remember doing that in the front room of our house. And I remember that, like, that's my kids were just used to a bunch of grown-ups in the front room playing pretend. Just what we did.
Yeah. Well, I remember we would also do, one of the things we do in rehearsal sometimes is just do a scene in the space. So it was like, okay, we're in Jenny's living room. So whatever the scene is, it takes place in this room with this couch and this lamp and these walls. And let's just see, like, do a scene here in this space, since that's where we are. So we would do that occasionally in workshop and just have fun with that idea.
Like I said, that's when you had to be careful when you came in late.
Yes.
The scene could already be going.
Yeah, and you had to jump in. It was like double Dutch. You just had to jump in at your own risk.
Yeah, no one was stopping to explain anything.
Richard would always bring his little ukulele.
He would. He'd show up to my front door just playing his ukulele.
Yeah. Those days are past me now. They're all gone.
It was great.
Yeah.
Wah, wah.
Yeah, you can still play the ukulele. Don't beat yourself up.
Yeah.
Oh no!
Oh no! You called the ukulele over. Here we go. Is Richard going to give us a ukulele song?
Is this our?
Oh man!
Well, guys, we have and gals, we have gone over our time. So how about we end? I don't know, with telling everybody your favorite thing of Offsides, and hopefully I'll have you over again to Martes con Jose.
Bueno.
Sound off. Go off.
Okay.
Go off. Sound off.
You're first.
No,
I'll go first. Jose's got to sign off his cojones. I just love that we, like Jenny said toward the beginning, that we became a family. So we're all extended family. And so it's not just a group that we belonged to once upon a time, but I mean, we still, when all of this madness started, we started Marco Poloing and checking in with everybody, making sure everybody was okay, and because we legitimately care for each other, and that stemmed from the group and just the intentional way we went about it. And I'm just thankful to call you guys my family. I think that's awesome.
Next.
For me, I'm grateful because the lessons of Offsides, relationships, and everything that we went through, they still continue for me, and I feel like when looking back on our experiences, I always feel like I've got lessons I can draw on that can help me be a better person to people in my life.
Richard froze.
Richard froze. Oh no.
No, he's probably going to be going on for a while too.
He's frozen.
His nickname, he did not mention it, the Rambler. He did.
Yeah, that's right. His nickname is the Rambler.
Well, Richard, when you get back, we'll let you keep going. I want to say that saying a lot of people say that we were joking at the beginning about women being in the group and, oh, you can't let 2 women be in the group. But there was a lot of talk in a certain time in improv about women being, just not treated well in improv or feeling like they have to keep up with the guys. One of my favorite things about Offsides is I never worried about that. Like, I feel like I was blessed to have people who believed in me, who thought I was funny, who wanted me to be a part of things, and they built me up and they pushed me when I said, I don't know if I want to do this anymore. They're like, no, you have to. Just people in your corner who were always building you up. There was never competition. It was always people bettering each other. And so that's what Offsides means to me. And that's why I'm where I am today. I'm so thankful for SAC for bringing us together. I'm thankful that SAC provides many of us a place to play and keep doing improv and seeing each other, and that they are supporting so many of these new indie groups that are coming out. So many people getting together who are like-minded, who play well together. And, we were just at the beginning of it. So there's just so many good memories. I can't think of just one, but that's what Offsides means to me. Support, 100% support, no matter what.
Yeah, I'll go. I'll jump on that support wagon. I agree. That's my biggest thing I think of is support. Because talking about women being funny, when I was first starting this, I didn't even know that was a thing because I was playing with you all and you guys were so funny. And it was like, wait, what? I moved to Chicago and that was like a thing. And I was like, why is this a thing? But for me, for this group means a lot to me because, I met my best friends in this group. And I, was the youngest. I was playing with you. You guys were so much older than me and wiser and just, been around, and so I was just soaking it in. But for real, it was, I didn't know what I was doing with this whole improv thing. I'm a musician and I was in a band at the time and I was like, do I want to do comedy? I guess. And you guys just took me in and we would do shows and I would be treated as if I had been doing improv my entire life when in reality I'd only been doing it for a year or so. And I'll never forget that. I'll never forget feeling like, oh no, yeah, we think you're fun and that's okay. You can do this too. It was the first time I really felt that. And gosh darn it, I'm being sincere and I mean every word of it. Okay.
All right.
Love y'all.
Thank you, Stash. Here's the things that I loved about Offsides. Number 1, I love the road trips. Number 2, I love taking pictures of everybody. Number 3, I love the support and the fact that this group could trust me because I really did slap each and every one of you in the seat. But also the trust that we gave each other and the fact that we could be honest with each other. Like I joked, that I wanted to kill Richard that night, but I literally told him to his face that he was annoying me. So we would be honest with each other in our posts. And I think it carries through to SAC. And I think that that's one of the big things is being able to be honest about what is happening or what has happened in the scene and being able to take that criticism and learn from it or take the accolades and not get too big of a head about it. And I think that was a really important thing because I think more people need to be honest with each other without feeling like, no, just be honest. Either that or I'm just a really mean old person.
No comment.
I would like to first thank the founders of SAC. They were on yesterday because if it wasn't for them, we wouldn't have met probably, and we wouldn't have had Offsides, which to me, Offsides is like a family. Also with the trust, that was very important, and that we honestly did love each other, and we wanted each and every one of us to succeed. I remember there was a point I was really done with improv, and I told Greg and Steven, and they pushed me to continue and keep going. and it was because of them that I kept going, because of you guys in Offsides that I kept going and, you know, continued doing improv. So you need that. And we were all so different too. Like I was talking to Steven yesterday when we were talking about this. Every one of us is very different and unique. But when we collaborate together, it's like, you know, this blossom that comes out that's beautiful. Whereas if we were all identical, playing the same and the same comedy, it wouldn't have been as fun. But it was because we were all so different. And I love that too. And I love every one of you. Miss you all too.
Love you too.
Love you too.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you for hanging out with Martes con Jose. Thank you, Offsides, for joining. Richard had frozen and left. I think the ukulele caused this. Guys, remember, don't click off because we'll talk behind the scenes afterwards. See you guys, everybody. Love you and see you next Martes. Bye.
Bye.